Boys and girls, welcome back to our channel. Great having you. Today we're looking at lesson number 7.
And it's Man Overboard.
Man overboard.
And look at this.
Oh, John made a booklet and I was saying to him that he could write per request.
But the thing is, I don't know how to write in it yet.
Well, you could use it to write the names of persons you're praying for.
This is the only thing I wrote in it. Just
The end.
see.
Or maybe you could use it for homework book at school to
Ooh,
keep you on task.
Okay.
All right, so good job. Cortex says,
Sitting down, Jesus and the 12 said,
Jesus called the 12 and said,
anyone who wants to be first must be the last
and the servant of all. Mark 9:35. Yes, and the PowerPoint says,
We seek opportunities to serve others in every situation.
Good job. All right, so Paul was a prisoner and he and other persons on the ship, they were basically shipwrecked, right? Have you ever been in a situation where all you wanted was to be full, warm, and dry?
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes.
So Paul and his shipmates, they wanted that. And so he was basically a prisoner on a ship, and the ship basically was wrecked, and everyone was ordered to get off the ship. So along with other men, Paul was
Sorry, we're back.
along
with the other men, Paul clung to pieces of the ship, and they were washed ashore.
Mhm.
As the people who were shipwrecked stood shivering on the beach, they noticed a group of people walking toward them.
Yes, and these people
Were islanders of Malta.
Exactly.
Let the drink.
And they gave them a royal welcome. And the people, do you think the inhabitants of Malta were friendly or they were very aggressive people?
They were friendly.
Very friendly. And they welcomed them and they made them feel special.
Like the soda.
All right, so we know that here back home we had a drink called Malta as well. But that's not the drink. We're not talking about the drink. We're talking about the country, the island. So once they got to shore, they quickly built a what? What did they build?
They built a meal.
No, before they created a meal, they built a fire because they were so cold and shivery, right? And Paul, even though he was a prisoner,
he helped.
He helped to gather the wood to kindle the fire. All right.
And there was a poisonous snake.
Yeah. So while he was gathering the wood and he threw it into the fire, there was this big snake that grabbed on his hand and bit him.
So, mommy, was his blood that juicy that he wanted some?
I guess it was. So what happened now? When the snake bit him on his arm, what did the islanders do? They jumped back, and one of them declared that
even though he must be a murderer, even even if he escaped from the sea, justice would not allow him
to live. So he was like, "No, this man is an evil man, evil,
wicked man."
But to their astonishment, on the contrary,
the snake.
What did Paul do when the snake bit him?
He threw him in the fire.
Right, and he just smiled and continued to keep himself warm. And they stood.
Was it worse than the one I have on my hand?
You have a little scar. It was worse than this. And when he threw the snake into the fire, they stood there watching him, expecting him to get what?
Die.
To die and to get swollen up. But nothing like that happened.
Nope.
Their predictions did not come through. And they started
their conclusion.
Good. And they agreed loudly among themselves and said that Paul must be a what?
God.
He must be a god, right? And one of the men in the crowd, a servant, he went and he called the ruler of Malta, because he wanted to tell him about this person, right? And the name of the man was what? Start with P.
Pedesh.
Not quite. Publius. Right.
So more like pebble.
Yeah, so they were watching Paul and to see what would happen. And as we said, nothing happened, and they were saying that Paul must be a god.
Their conclusions died.
Yes. So the servant went to find Publius, who was the ruler of Malta. And what did Publius do?
He welcomed him.
He welcomed Paul, and what else did he do?
A wonderful meal.
Gave him a wonderful meal. And he asked Paul a very pertinent question. What did he ask Paul?
If he was a god.
And what did Paul say?
No.
No. So instead of saying that he was a god, because he wasn't a god, what did he do instead?
He talked about the living God.
The living God, the true and only good God that there is. And Publius listened to Paul as he was telling him about the true God of heaven, how he worked wonders, how he was a miracle working God, a God of love and compassion, right? So one of the servants came and, because Paul was there for about 3 days,
and Publius' father was suffering
very sick,
from fever
and dysentery. Dysentery.
Yeah.
You remember what dysentery was?
Yes, when you pass his stool and there's blood.
A lot of blood in it, and he had vomiting. He was vomiting and he had diarrhea, and he was just looking very pale. The doctors couldn't help him, and he was near.
That means he's wasting his own blood.
Well, yes, because if you're passing blood, it means you're going to become pale and you're becoming weak. So when
and you're going to drop down.
Right. So when Paul saw him was near death, and Paul, wanted to see what he could do.
Then he prayed for him.
Yes, he saw him, and tell me, when Paul saw him, how did he look?
He felt sorry for him.
Yeah, but how did Publius' dad look? How was his face looking?
His face looked relieved.
Not really. If you're sick, how would your face look? Right. And the color in his face was leaving. It was leaving his face, and his breathing was shallow.
Right? He was like,
right. Okay. So you look like death was written all over his face, right? And what did Paul do for this gentleman?
He prayed for him, put his hand on his head.
And he prayed to the God of heaven, and he asked God to do what?
Heal him.
To heal him. All right. And Publius' father opened his eyes, and what else did he do?
He started walking around.
No, he just sat up. That was too fast. He sat up. All right, and I'm sure maybe they gave him some meal, something to eat. Mm-hmm. Tell me now, that bear in mind his face was looking all sad and drained and looking like death. But when he was healed, how did his face look now?
He glowed.
It glowed and looked bright and healthy.
So what did they give him to eat?
Maybe they gave him broth and soup, So Publius introduced his father to Paul because, Paul was the one who healed him. And again, they were thinking that maybe Paul is a what?
He's a hero.
Not just a hero. They were maybe thinking that he was a god. And he said, no. He started pointing them to the true and living God of heaven.
They must be like, he's a superhero.
God is a superhero. And God is our only and true healer. Okay? So God was the healer, and he was pointing them to God, who is a true healer.
It's question time. And this is your teacher.
All right. What was the name of the island that Paul was shipwrecked on?
Start with the name. Malta.
Yes. Awesome. Give me a high five.
Soda.
True or false? The islanders were cruel people.
False.
What happened to Paul as he prepared the fire?
A snake bit and, had a good...
Yes, snake bit him. And who was the ruler of the island?
Publius.
Good job. Yay! And tell us about Publius' dad.
He was very sick and he was going to die.
And what did Paul do for him?
He healed him.
He prayed and he got healed. Who did Paul keep telling the people about?
God.
The true God of heaven, and that he was, the healer and everything. So John Mark, what can you learn from this story now? That
you should always listen to God and, do what he says.
Very good. And that you should always seek to help others. Even though Paul was a prisoner, sometimes we're in sad situation where like, oh, we can't be thinking about others. He was thinking about how he could help others. And God used him to be a witness. All right. So boys and girls, we're encouraging you to continue sharing the word of God, continue to study the word of God. And remember, who loves you best?
Jesus.
Yes,
and you pass the Christian test.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Teacher Kat is very proud of you.
That's